Okay, so we're going to be in 1 Samuel 25. I'm guessing everybody can hear me. Lord, can you hear me? Online people?
Yes,
Okay.
I got you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, very good. I'm usually told to be quiet as opposed to speak up. Let's see here. So maybe we can have somebody jump in verse 23 here in just a minute. 1 Samuel 25. We're going to try to conquer this whole chapter. It's a lot, but it takes about 7 minutes, so I think it's worth the time. And then we'll kind of pick it apart. We're looking at specifically Nabal. He is the husband in this story. But there's also going to be a lesson from Abigail, his wife, and also David. With this idea of good lessons from bad guys, Nabal's the bad guy. He's the fool, basically, in this week. And so we're going to kind of, again, consider what we can learn from him, but even some things we'll learn from again, Abigail and David, specifically David. It's always kind of an anomaly to me that God calls him a man after his own heart, and then you see stories like this and many other stories. Now, there's some stories where it's easy to see David is so much more noble, so much more righteous than I would ever be, and just so worthy of such honor. But then there's other times where you're like, David, come on, man. You walked right into that. So let's morning, Travis. Let's look here at 1 Samuel 25. I'll read 2 through verse 22, and then somebody can pick it up after that. There was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel, and the man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. The name of the man was Nabal. The name of his wife was Abigail. She was a woman of good understanding and beautiful appearance, but the man was harsh and evil in his doings. He was of the house of Caleb. When David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep, David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, "Go up to Carmel, go to Nabal, and greet him in my name, and thus you shall say to him who lives in prosperity, peace be to you, peace to your house, peace to all that you have. Now I have heard that you have shearers, your shepherds were with us, and we didn't hurt them, nor was there anything missing from them all the while they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever comes to your hand to your servants and to your son David." So when David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all these words in the name of David and waited. Then Nabal answered David's servants and said, "Who's David? And who's the son of Jesse? There are many servants nowadays who break away each one from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shearers and give it to men when I don't even know where they are from?" So David's young men turned on their heels and went back, and they came and told him all these words. Then David said to his men, "Every man gird on his sword." So every man girded on his sword, and David also girded on his sword. About 400 men went with David. 200 stayed with the supplies. Now, one of the young men told Abigail about Nabal's wife, saying, "Look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, and he reviled them. But the men were very good to us, and we were not hurt, nor did we miss anything as long as we accompanied them when we were in the fields. They were a wall to us both by night and by day. All the time we were with them, keeping the sheep." All the time we were with them, keeping the sheep. "Now therefore, know and consider what you will do. For harm is determined against our master and against our household. For he is such a scoundrel that one cannot speak to him." It's hilarious that they're telling the wife this. Verse 18. Then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed, 5 seeds of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, 200 cakes of figs, and loaded them on donkeys. And she said to her servants, Go on before me. See, I am coming after you. But she did not tell her husband Nabal. So it was, as she rode on the donkey, that she went down under cover of the hill, and there were David and his men coming toward her, and she met them. Now David said, surely in vain I protected all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belongs to him. And he has repaid me evil for good. May God do so, and more also, to the enemies of David, if I leave one male of all who belong to him by morning light.
When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground. We're supposed to be going into the chapter, right?
Please, yes, sir.
Okay. She fell at his feet and said, pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Please pay no attention, my lord, to the wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him. And as for me, your servant, I did not see the men my lord sent. And now, my lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives and as you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent on harming my lord be like Nabal. And let this gift which your servant has brought to my lord be given to the men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my Lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. When the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him, and his appointed him ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servant. David said to Abigail, praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak. Then David accepted from her hand what she brought and said, go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request. When Abigail went to Nabal, he was in the house holding a banquet like that of a king. He was in high spirits and very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until daybreak. Then in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him all these things, and his heart failed him, and he became like a stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, praise be to the Lord, who has upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with contempt. He has kept his servant from doing wrong, and has brought Nabal's wrongdoing down on his own head. Then David sent word to Abigail, asking her to become his wife. His servants went to Carmel and said to Abigail, David has sent us to you to take you to become his wife. She bowed down with her face to the ground and said, I am your servant and am ready to serve you and wash the feet of my Lord's servant. Abigail quickly got on a donkey and, attended by her 5 female servants, went with David's messengers and became his wife. David had also married Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they both were his wives. But Saul had given his daughter Michal, David's wife, to Patiel, son of Laish, who was from Galilee.
Thank you. I know that's a long reading, but I'm always known for getting the word. So let's look at Nabal real quick. What do you see here?
So this is before this is after Goliath, after anointings, but before he's king, correct?
Yes.
This is when Saul's chasing him through the.
Yeah.
And you said I could have touched your cloak. That one. Okay, so I was wondering what the context was like. If he was already king and David had gone to Nabal and was like, oh, yeah, but okay. So was it well known that he was anointed? Because she makes it sound like she knows he's going to become king. So I'm wondering if
there's some weird kind of prophetic kind of in some of her language, it does almost sound as though, but when you read other texts, it's almost as though it was David and Samuel. And Samuel had anointed him, and that was kind of, some of the men, maybe some of his mighty men or some of the men that were close to him, but other than that, it doesn't really seem like, the mighty men definitely do. But, Lloyd, are you trying to say something? Oh, we're trying to turn up. Yeah, so yes, to put it in context, thank you, Jeff, just kind of looking at all this, this is prior to, him officially taking over as king. That doesn't happen until in the second Samuel, but he has been anointed.
The other reason I asked that is because she talked about hurling his enemies like from a sling, which again was what he used to destroy Goliath. So I'm like, how familiar is she with David's entire, opponents or something?
Right, yeah, very good.
She said she was intelligent, I guess. I don't know.
Good observation, yeah, one of understanding. What do you see here about Nabal specifically?
We were watching Christmas Carol last night. It reminds me of Scrooge.
Yeah, very good, yeah, we saw that. We saw that not long ago. Yeah, I felt the same as I read through it. I'm sorry, Kim.
He's got a big ego.
Big ego? Yeah.
Reminds me of people from Carmel. We lived in Carmel, Indiana.
Oh,
It's very
okay.
full of rich people
Oh, okay, interesting.
with egos. So it reminded me of Carmel. That's when I say, oh yeah, it's from Carmel. Oh, that makes sense.
Nabal, what do you see in him? Where did he go wrong? What could he have done, maybe? Is there kind of like a medium ground that he could have?
Well, he started off saying, well, anybody could claim to be anybody, right? I guess that's how he took it. Like I said, a lot of servants have broken off from their masters and said, whatever, so how do I know you're... I think that's what he says, right? And that's how he answers them, and I guess that's his excuse to just tell them to buzz off.
Yeah.
So maybe, to me, I'm wondering if it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter if they're lying or not. What matters is how you respond, kind of. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Sure. Like, would it have cost them any material amount to respond in kind, regardless of whether they were telling the truth or not?
Well, and let's back that up just a little bit. What do you do if somebody tells you something you're not sure if it's true or not? What would be a logical thing that you could do? Well, there were shearers out there.
Yeah.
I could go to those shearers and say, hey, did you ever see these guys? Is this true? Is there any truth to this? Just to start out with. You could do that. What other possibilities could he have done?
I mean, the servants even said that they were familiar with David's men.
Yeah,
They
the
said,
servants.
and they said,
Yeah.
We're scared of your husband.
Right, yeah. Your
So-
husband, the bozo, yeah.
Yeah.
What else could he have done? Any other thoughts about how he could have maybe handled this a little better?
Oh, I get bits and pieces coming out. This isn't the first time Nabal's been drunk.
Okay,
There's a pattern here.
okay. Yeah, and again, clearly the full, even his name seems to indicate that. Which that's, great parents.
But look at Abigail's reaction to Nabal. Okay, she was doing what she should be doing, I believe. Yeah, I mean she was subservient to him, as a wife would be in those times.
Good, yeah. Yeah, Abigail, definitely the hero in this story. And in reality, again, even with David, what do we see David do? A little bit rash that he didn't get. I mean, basically what's going on here? Come to the end of the month, into the 2-week period, you're looking for your paycheck's not there, everybody grab a sword. We're gonna go kill him. What? I mean, it's a paycheck, dude. Come on. It's food, Let's go kill it. Let's go kill an animal and eat that animal. I mean, every male has to be slaughtered. Does it seem a little reactive to y'all? I mean, in our time, it's like totally just foreign to us. What? You don't go kill your boss because he didn't get up on the, maybe sue him, but you don't, go grab a gun or grab a bomb or something and, well, you guys didn't give me my 2-week paycheck or my month paycheck or whatever. Even Abigail and David both, do you hear it in their language? Basically, they both realize, hey, you went a little too far on this. Did you hear that? What did Abigail say? What was her words to David? It's kind of worked out because you didn't have to shed innocent blood. What was his words to her? It's kind of worked out because I didn't have to shed innocent blood. So David definitely overreacted. Again, a lot of times we'll think of David as kind of the the hero. You look back at, as Jeff already mentioned in 1 Samuel 17 with Goliath, we look back and go, man, he's an obedient servant. He just wants to see the kingdom. But in this case, it's like, man, he took it a little too far.
I think at the end of the day, Abigail was also, she said so much to David about how the Lord was gonna do this for David and the Lord was gonna do that for David. And it's, in a way, it's like, David, the Lord will provide for you. Like,
Yeah.
You will be okay.
Right.
Why are we going this far?
And that's good. Yeah, that's a great point, Kim, because what happens just 10 days after this? What happens to Nabal?
He died.
He just dies. So it's like God's going to work this out. I mean, our daughter, we've kind of been dealing with a visa for her to go to Brazil and all this, and we've kind of been trying to tell her, what's another day? You're 20 years old. What's a week in your lifetime? Do the math, calculate it up. What's a week? But in reality, in that week, what does it feel like? Lifetime. Or a day feels like, So how should this help us as far as perspective? I think there's a few lessons here. So I'm going to wrap it up. There's a few lessons here, but one of the lessons I always hear, that I often hear, I guess I should say, is the distance between your perspective and your reality is your stress. Okay? What you're expecting, this is how things should be, and this is reality. However big that distance is, that's your level of stress. And in this case, David expected that guy to just be like, here's my house, here's my wives, here's my everything. And so there was a big disappointment there. What was expected and what was reality were just kind of night and day. Quick last comment. So I want to look at Matthew 5 before we wrap up, and I've got 3 minutes. Anything else that stands out?
Well, to me, the first verse is talking about how Samuel dies. And Samuel was very like the mentor to David.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if he reacted so fast because he was under some emotional distress. Because he can't go and mourn with everybody else because he's being hunted right now. Right? So I'm trying to put myself in his place. I'm wondering if he's like, well, I've got the means to do this, and I'm, quick to anger, I guess.
Yeah.
Because David seems to be, except in Saul's case, David seems to be very quick to be able to be ready to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And everything he does, he's real quick to, all right, fine, I'm going to kill him. Yeah. Except for Saul, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Saul's the only one that he's had the opportunity to call and kill multiple times and he never has because he's God's anointed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, even when David wants to build the temple, what's the reason why God says you can't? Too much blood on your hands. Yeah, killed too many people. I want to kind of wrap up because I always love to make the Jesus connection, and I see it in this story. In Matthew 5, verse 23, and it's ironic, right before this, Jesus is even talking about calling somebody a fool. But Matthew 5:23, therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go your way. First be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift. Agree with your adversary. Listen closely to verse 25 and see if you don't hear one of the characters out of this story of 1 Samuel 25. This is Matthew 5:25. Agree with your adversary quickly while you are on the way with him, lest your adversary deliver you to the judge hand you over to the officer, and be thrown in prison. Assuredly, I say to you, you will by no means get out of there until you've paid off the last penny. Who's following? Obviously, this is way prior to Christ, 1,000 or more years prior to Christ, but who seems to be following Jesus' teaching in that? Abigail did, yeah. Man, I'm going to get the dinner ready quick. Let's get this paper quick. Y'all get on up there. I'll be there in just a minute. This idea of making peace quickly. So when we see Nabal, we see a fool that is rash, that is harsh, and not willing to really pay what he owes. I mean, here he's getting drunk with all his buddies.
Well, and that they talk about it being a feast for a king. So obviously you can afford to feed David, and David is a king. So I wonder if that's why, again, I'm seeing a lot of imagery,
Kind of symbolic.
a lot of symbolism in this one chapter about David, and they're saying, oh yeah, he threw a feast fit for a king, and there's David, he's not doing anything for who is a king, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I guess he's known as a future king or something. He's at least known as a warrior,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. That was our bell. Let me pray for us and then we'll be dismissed. Father, we ask for wisdom. You've promised that you would give it generously, and so we we do plead that we would have wisdom, and as Jesus said, that wisdom would bear fruit, and the fruits would be shown in our lives. Let us always seek your word in Jesus Christ for truth. It's through his name we pray.